live.
Hello, everyone who is joining us. Welcome to this Business of App section. We're going to give it a few minutes to let people join in. So you'll see just popped in the chat a little bit of a welcome. Please feel free to introduce yourselves and tell us where you're dialing in from. So we are from across the globe ourselves, and we want to know where everyone else is from. Look forward to getting this kicked off in a few minutes. This is great, everyone. Love to see this. We've got people from the UK so far, a few different locations in Germany, more UK. Perfect. Scotland. Do you have snow yet? We have snow where I am. Hello, Jose from Mexico. We know you do not have snow. So hopefully you're enjoying the warm weather this December. Hello from Sao Paulo, France. Dialing in. Love the global nature. See about how many people do we have? Quite a lot of people. Awesome. This is great. Again, feel free to keep introducing yourselves in the chat. And for those who might be new to this webinar, there is a Q&A button as well. So feel free to ask questions as we go along. We do have some additional questions, but we'd love to see questions if there are any as we kick off. Quite a lot of people. All right, I think we have a good number, about 5 minutes in. So, all right, I'm going to kick off now. So hi, everyone. I'm Nicole Weiss, and I am your moderator for today. I am the founder of Brassfinch, which is an app marketing firm based out of the East Coast of the United States. So welcome to today's live stream. This is a really exciting event. We will be talking about making CTV work for user acquisition from exposure to install. As an app marketer personally, I know I still have a lot of questions about how CTV fits into as a broader acquisition strategy. And I know many of you really feel the same. So we've seen, the paid media landscape shift a lot over the last few years between iOS privacy updates that have made tracking harder, the mobile ecosystem is reaching saturation, and the fun one, CPIs just keep going up. So naturally, app marketers, we are looking for that next opportunity to help grow our app. And while all of this can make our jobs feel a little harder, the CTV ecosystem is evolving quickly. It's becoming a channel that more teams are starting to explore. So you have MMPs like Kochava that are refining attribution to connect CTV exposure with verified mobile installs, DSPs like Dataseat that are providing that performance that are proving, that conformance can be driven and optimized on the big screen, and SSPs like Verve that are powering those campaigns across curated, high quality supply with the contextual and creative signals that make measurement possible. So our goal today, super simple, right? We're going to look at what CTV can do, what it can, and what a realistic test looks like for user acquisition teams who want more than a branding play. We'll cover how CTV to mobile attribution works in practice, where the channel makes sense in a UA mix, creative and contextual approaches that help drive installs, and what to look for when you're evaluating your results. By the end of the session, you'll have hopefully a clearer sense of what CTV deserves a place in your mix and what you should expect if you decide to test. We have 3 awesome guests today that are going to be joining to help, dive into each part of this. I'm going to have them do a little bit of intros themselves, and also, because we are talking CTV, tell you what is the most recent thing that they streamed. First up, the intro will be from Dataseat, Alexi Molchin, bringing the performance perspective and how CTV behavior translates into mobile action. Then from Verve, Nikunj Sureka, explaining the supply side and how quality and signals make measurement possible. And then from Kochava, Julia Can, Managing Director of Advertising Solutions, who will be breaking down attribution and how to validate results you see. So before we jump into the questions, Alexi, would you like to do a little mini intro?
Yeah, sure. Thanks, Nicole. Hi, everyone. I'm excited to be part of this live stream. I'm Alexi Molten, calling from Hamburg in Germany, and I'm VP of Product at Dataseat, and we are a contextual DSP designed for user acquisition, initially in the post IDFA era in iOS, but now expanding into CTV and expanding into TV, and I'm happy to share our learnings with you. The last thing I streamed was White Lotus season 2. I'm a little bit late to the game, so catching up now. I still have one season to go. That was fun.
We'll have to watch it together because I'm actually just starting season 3 as well. So you and I will have to DM our thoughts since we're both behind.
Yeah.
Nikunj, how about you? Oh, Nikunj, we
Nikunj.
can't hear you. You muted.
Oh, thank you. Nice to meet you all. My name is Nikunj. I'm the Senior Director of Product at Verve Marketplace, the Verve SSP business, and I focus on our CTV initiatives from the publisher side. Um, Verve is an omni-channel marketplace, and I come with a lot of publisher and SSP background in my past work experiences. In terms of like streaming, I think I spent my Thanksgiving watching the newest season of Stranger Things. My wife and myself, we are big fans of that series. They dropped 3 episodes, and we just binge watched that whole thing in like half a day.
Excellent choice. No spoilers for those who have not watched it, but I'm definitely excited for the next drop on December 25th.
Yeah.
Julia, tell us a bit about yourself.
Yeah, my name is Julia Can. I'm calling in from San Francisco, California. I'm the Managing Director of Advertiser Solutions at Kochava, responsible for the business growth of our MMP business, our marketing mix modeling business, and search ads campaign management platform. The last thing I streamed, I would say, probably a little bit embarrassing for me to admit this because reality TV is a guilty pleasure, but it is Real Housewives.
Excellent reality TV choice. So, thanks everyone for giving us a little bit about yourselves. Let's now jump into that first question. So, CTV has long been seen as a brand channel, not something that necessarily UA teams could measure or optimize. Alexi, from your perspective on the DSP side, what's held it back so far and what's starting to change as we move into 2026?
Yeah, so I think it's really a combination of factors. It's not just one thing that changed. It was evolving. So initially, the factors are both market, consumer, and technology related. Initially, TV and then CTV subsequently was a kind of upfront commitment channel. And with the rise of streaming or streaming revolution, the consumer attention shifted to kind of streaming, and this created a lot of surge of supply, including the ad-supported supply, which opened up to programmatic access, and basically it's opened the possibility not to buy a whole day or whole show, but decide on an impression per impression basis. How many impressions do you want to buy? What kind of exposures you want to kind of be seen at? And then finally, of course, the measurement side on the MMPs, it's kind of the MMPs recognize that it's actually possible to measure CTV exposure influence on the installs, and then the technology evolved to a point where it's as seamless as measuring the mobile kind of exposures. All of these factors led to the fact that CTV has become more accessible, and measurable, which is, the kind of the prerequisite for the performance marketers, because in performance world, if something is not measurable, it does not exist.
That's great. I think you touched on something really important, was the increase of inventory, and I think Nikunj, I would love to hear you expand a little bit on that part.
Yeah, absolutely. I think Alexa said it very well. I think the liquidity in the market has increased quite a lot over the last 5 or 6 years since CTV started becoming a prominent source of advertising. This sort of forces publishers to look at programmatic as a significant source of monetization to maintain their revenue growth and anything else they are looking for. Um, which means so essentially in the market, what has happened in the last 3 or 4 years is publishers are focusing more on programmatic monetization, and the buyers are focusing more on buying programmatically versus paying directly in the upfronts and booking an entire spot when they don't want it. They can spot buy on an impression level. Um, this sort of forced the business to look at programmatic, but at the same time, all the technology platforms that sort of make CTV advertising happen, like your SSAI, your publisher's ad server, your publisher's app, and all the SSPs and DSPs, entire ecosystem sort of rallied behind that process and started making things better for programmatic. So, for example, SSAIs and publisher apps that were not sending a user device information because the ad requests were generating on the server side, it was very difficult before. But now things have become more seamless because everybody has become more savvy with programmatic.
That's really great to hear. And I believe, Julia, you'd be able to expand on that even more on the measurement side and how you think things have, changed recently.
Yeah, I would say we really started to see a bigger shift since COVID. Kochava has been supporting some of the world's largest streaming brands, and I think we can all remember the CTV viewership explosion at that time. And a lot of our CTV streaming customers were starting to invest more in these platforms. And Kochava has really made CTV a measurement a pillar of what we do. So years ago, for example, one of our streaming customers came to us along with the CTV platform that they were advertising on with this measurement question because they weren't understanding the true ROAS of their campaigns. So what Kochava did was built the measurement system of record for that CTV platform. And today, Kochava powers some of the OEMs as well as the CTV networks where you would go to buy this inventory. We've also seen this shift in the data that we have as well. So in our multi-touch attribution data, we often see that the CTV ad exposure precedes search 96% of the time and precedes social 94% of the time when all of these channels are together in the same app conversion journey. So what this means is that the CTV presence in higher upper funnel media mix is influencing the bottom of the funnel, such as social and search. And there is just a broader recognition of where CTV sits in the consumer journey. So more brands are testing CTV, recognizing that it works, and investing more of their budget in there.
Well, I think there's some really great metrics, and actually a great segue to our next question, which is probably the biggest question mark around CTV to mobile. What can we actually do today to connect a TV impression to a mobile install, and what are the biggest blockers?
Yeah, so because CTV is largely a view through media, meaning that the inventory is not clickable, the matching is done probabilistically through IP to IP matching. And IP is not an ideal identifier for mobile campaigns for the sole fact that you have mobile devices and they're jumping around all the time. So it moves from IP to IP. However, because CTV devices are stationary, IP matching within households are reliable. In cases where, for example, an ad is exposed and the conversion doesn't happen until maybe 4 or 5 or 6 days later, Kochava has also implemented device link, which is a household graph. For example, in the US, we have up to 150 million households with 5+ devices per household, so that it gives marketers a broader understanding of the impact of CTV when there's no common identifier between the ad signal and the conversion signal. So for example, let's say Alexei was on his CTV. He saw an ad for sports streaming. Maybe 4 days later, he's taking a train to work because it's return to work. And there's a big game going on that night. He recalls the ad and he downloads the app. In traditional measurement methods, you would never be able to match that because it's 2 devices, 2 IP addresses. But because we have that household graph, we're able to perform real-time attribution, tying the performance of that device to his specific household.
That's so interesting. And I guess Alexi, because, again, lots of good questions here. Based on what Julia just said, sounds like attribution data can be delayed. How do DSP models model performance or optimize toward installs without relying on that traditional mobile identifier?
Yeah, I think that's a great question, and luckily, the MMPs are doing the heavy lifting when it comes to matching between the exposures and installs. So thanks a lot for existing. But when it comes to the DSP perspective, it's really it depends on how the optimization is structured in the core of each particular DSP. So from a DSP perspective, it can the installs and event signals, they can be either tied to kind of any kind of household exposures, household identifiers, or to different contextual attributes, right? And for instance, on the dataset side, we were ready for this shift initially because we initially designed the whole optimization to be contextually first, as we were kind of navigating the user acquisition on iOS post IDFA. So it's all modeled around those contextual attributes. So for us, it comes natural that we expect some delays in data because we know that certain parts of our contextual models can be optimized without precise identifier data. For the other DSPs, it can be different, of course.
Good to know. Nukunj, what are the challenges on the inventory side that you see?
From an inventory perspective, I think so. Sending something like an IP address is fairly straightforward. Without that, programmatic doesn't work. So we see those kind of signals 100% of the inventory. But when it comes to say sharing device IDs or sharing exchange IDs like your LiveRamp ID or UID2 or all of these other IDs, every publisher is in different state in their journey. Some publishers send more because they are more programmatic savvy, where attribution becomes easier when you can map an ID to another ID and map it all to a mobile device. Um, but when these IDs are not present, attribution is slightly difficult. Other than savviness, I think from publisher perspective, it's a matter of ownership and having the rights to share these IDs. So they don't always have the rights to share a user ID along with all the content signals and all the other data that comes into the bitstream. So some of those challenges exist, and there are ways to mitigate some of these challenges using an SSP and a DSP who can do all of this mapping for them.
So that leads us to another great question, Nukunj. What actually travels with a CTV impression? What signals are available today, and how can they be used to make better buying and optimization
Yeah,
decisions?
yeah. There's a whole array of signals. The basics that are important is your IP address, your user agent information, and your device IDs. These are generally sent from the client's device itself, and they pass through the bitstream. They are critical for any programmatic option to work. Then your content signals are the next. Those come sometimes. They are not available all the time. They are super important to understand the quality of the users and the level of attention they are paying to the content, um, which is what is used in CTV to do all buying decisions when it comes to like brand exposure buys. But when it comes to like a performance buy, I think the focus should more be on the users and on the households and the devices. And that's where like your device IDs and your exchange IDs sort of help quite a lot.
Good to know. Alexi, how do DSPs leverage these signals?
Yeah, I would say even though some IDs come in the bitstream apparently, I think it's important not to forget about the nature of CTV environments. Unlike social or in-app, it's not one-to-one medium, meaning it's kind of one one CTV impression is typically exposed to multiple individuals, which makes it harder to do the audience type of targeting, right? Because you might be trying to reach some people in in the household, but you might be showing the ad to the other people in the household. That being said, contextual signals in this sense can be really powerful indicators of consumer behaviors of what they will be trying to do. And we think on the DSP side of a user context in a broader sense. So it's not just related to the concrete app streaming app they're watching, but we try to go deeper both on the content. So, like, is the app live? Is the show that people are watching on the app? Is it live streamed or is it on demand? Right, and that reflects different consumer behavior because they don't want to miss something which is live streamed or on demand. They can put it on pause, for instance, right? But also the person's environment. Like, is it beginning or the end of the week? Which might mean how tired they are to make any decisions, or is it early or late in the day where the person is located, and so on and so on. What device they're kind of using for streaming. So much more of these kind of contextual attributes, and all of these are being put into the sophisticated machine learning models, which then help us to predict how likely is an ad exposure in this household can lead to an install or a subsequent revenue event.
Yeah, that's like a lot goes into it. And I think, Julia, you probably have the question then that like everyone really wants to know who's a marketer on this call. But from a measurement perspective, how useful are these signals?
Yeah, because the measurement tools that Kochava provides sits downstream from the DSP and the SSP. The signals are really important to provide marketers the level of granularity to help them to understand what's working and what's not. And the more that's passed, the higher the visibility the marketers have, and passing information of what was mentioned previously, maybe video completion rate, the genre of programming in which the ad was played, if it's reality TV or drama, and then also a standard elements of the campaign, such as creatives, are still really important for the marketers.
Yeah, it's great. And a question just came in, which I think is really relevant. Everyone's kind of touched on this a little bit from Kunal Patel, but how do you measure the incremental value of a CTV install, especially when the install conversion happens several days after the CTV view took place? I feel like everyone's kind of touched on this a little bit, but this is a really great, like, direct question. So, Julia, I think this would fall on you, I believe.
Yeah, incrementality is a question that we get often, and it's not just CTV, it's for all channels now, just because of the depletion of signals. So our hypothesis is that marketers are going to be adding in marketing mix modeling in their toolkit a lot more. MMM has existed previously. It's not a new concept. However, the issue with old MMM framework is that the data is delayed. You might get the information how incremental was your spend maybe a month, or not a month, a quarter later. So there's a huge delay. And for performance marketers, that's not fast enough for them to change up what their budget should look like week over week. So a lot of our customers, to answer that question, have been using always on incremental, where we're able to provide the incrementality per KPI by spend on channels. And how it's different is that you get a weekly estimate of what your budget should look like and what your KPIs and how that would change. We also add in external factors. So, for example, if it's sports streaming, what the sports schedules looks like, holidays, things like that. And then what our customers have been doing is taking the MMM data plus the MMP data to then really understand how incremental each channel is and then allocate their budgets accordingly.
That's great. I don't know if Alexi or Nikunj, either of you feel there's anything additive on your end. If not, move on. I feel like that's really a very MMP question.
No, I mean it's mainly a measurement question, but what we see also talking to our clients and to the MMP partners is is that CTV not only directly, impacts the installs or drives the installs, incremental installs. That is for sure true, but also it amplifies the other channel. So as as Julia mentioned before, above 90% of all the kind of search or social interactions are preceded by CTV ad exposures. Means CTV helps to create new demand, and this kind of incrementality, it should not be overlooked as well, because it has an effect on the other channels' performance, not only on directly attributing the ad exposures on CTV to kind of installs on the mobile devices.
That's really great. We got another question, I think, on top of what Julia had asked. And again, I'm not actually sure if this would be a Julia or Alexi. I'm going to throw it out there. Anyone feel free to answer. But the question is, and you won't be able to see everything in the window, so I'm going to read everything. Comes from Tim. Tim says, I'm curious to learn how video completion is influenced by placement. I've seen a lot of campaigns, even with long video ads of 90 seconds, have completion rates of close to 100%. So it seems similar to rewarded placements in mobile. It's just non-skippable inventory, hence completion rate is then maybe a poor indicator of quality. I think that's a great question. I feel like maybe it's an Alexi question, or maybe to Julia as well.
Well, we can, we can express opinions. So, quite frankly, I don't recall Julia mentioning video completion rate as one of the signals. But perhaps I'm wrong, but I don't disagree with the fact that impressions and videos in CTV environment are close to rewarded videos in terms of the completion rate, right? It's non-skippable, and basically it's hard not to complete it, especially if you're watching a live stream show and you don't want to miss it. So one might think that people won't simply watch it, but at the same time, um, unlike the mobile non-skippable ads, TV or CTV is like TV in its form factor, right? So it means it still has a different appeal, and it's kind of perceived differently. An ad on CTV has to do with how the TV is perceived. The biggest screen the biggest screen at home, and even if several people are exposed to that ad, even if one person does not pay attention, the other will. So it's kind of similar to mobile non-skippable formats, but at the same time it's very different, because it's a big screen and not a small screen, and all the ads you see on TV are perceived a little bit differently, and they have a different place in your brain to remember, which makes it more efficient anyway. But yeah, I don't disagree that video completion rate as a KPI might not be the best predictor, given it's always always close to 100%.
Yeah.
I can add a quick point to this.
Yeah.
From all my experience with brand advertisers, what I see is video completion rate, as you guys mentioned, is not a good KPI to measure quality of CTV, but it's a very good KPI to measure um, whether you're showing your ad to the right user and to the right app. Because if you're not seeing 90% plus completion rate, then there is a possibility of IVT or other factors that are influencing your buys. So you want to make sure that you get 90% or higher viewability no matter what, but that is not the ultimate quality signal.
Oh, that's definitely something good to know. Before we get back to more Q&A, I do have one more question, and I'm glad. Thank you, everyone who are leaving questions in the question and answer section. Really appreciate it. We also have some questions that were asked prior that we'd hopefully like to get to. But one of the questions, the last question I would like to know is, what are the key steps or best practices for a UA team looking to include CTV in their app install mix? Let's start with you, Julia. I would love your take on this.
Yeah, happy to provide some insight. I think marketers should have a strong focus on the measurement capabilities of their chosen measurement tools, specifically with the integrations of what tool that supports. And integrations are where you plan to activate your campaigns, and it's really the name of the game. So what marketers will find is that there is a spectrum of maturity when it comes to CTV platforms and integration with measurement tools. So for example, if you plan to activate your campaign in LG, Vizio, Roku, and Dataseat, and you find that the measurement tool that you're currently using only has integration with Roku and Dataseat, then you're going to be missing the data from the OEMs in a single system of record. So that's tip one, to make sure that the integrations are there where you want to activate your campaigns. Second is configuring appropriate look back windows. We find with CTV media, it's an average of a 3 to 7 day view through look back window compared to the 1 to 3 day that some measurement systems might be limited to. And then I would say lastly is making sure that you have consistent event tagging across the platforms where your apps are available. For example, having the same event structure names on iOS and Android, because if you have, for example, different purchase event names across your apps, you're going to have challenges pulling together a cohesive cross-device performance analysis.
That's great to hear. Alexia, I'd love to hear your opinion on this topic.
Yeah, sure. I would say the first step is to actually, allocate testing budgets to CTV, and this depends on the environment or kind of the size and the maturity of the app brand, whether CTV has been run before, in a branding department, or CTV is a new channel. This kind of poses a set of kind of internal challenges to navigate, because if CTV has been run before in branding department, it's going to be hard discussion in terms of like, oh, we would like to now to test CTV as a performance medium. We've stumbled upon these cases with our clients as well. But once you do that, and set the right expectations related to the point I brought up earlier regarding the fact that CTV is a one-to-many medium, and unlike in-app and social, then you need to choose the right programmatic partner, right? The partner who is, to Julia's point, all the pipes tested with the mobile measurement partners, to make sure the pipes are working, and it's, that you do not stumble upon technical issues when you're already trying to test the performance of a new channel. But also the right programmatic partner will help you navigate the supply and other requirements, and help you pick the ones which represent, the attention of your target audience. And then I would say the last, but not least, of course, it's a very important piece, is the creative. Produce or adjust the creative to be CTV ready. Some of our clients, they repurpose the social videos they have. Some of them decide to kind of produce new ones, but it needs to be really high quality, full HD, certain bit rate and the FPS, and it needs to tell a story, because this is 15 or 30 second spots you are exposing your brand to consumers with. You need to have a good to have a good impression on in the eyes of the consumer. So the creative needs to be crisp and needs to tell the story. That would be my recommendations.
Creative is important everywhere. I think that's a good call out that we haven't talked about during this session at all. Is just the value of having good creative, making sure that your messaging is clear and that you have creative that makes sense for that specific format. So thank you for bringing that up, Alexia. I think that's a great call out. And then Nikunj, last up for this question, would love to hear your take from the SSP side.
Yeah, so from an SSP point of view, I think what Alexa touched upon, which is like creative quality, it is very important to make sure you choose the right DSP who can actually support creatives, high quality creatives with the most latest IAB specs as possible. Because CTV is a high quality environment. Most of the publishers throw out creatives if they are not of the right resolution, if they are not following the right protocols. Extremely important. From a UA manager's perspective, I think it's also important to understand what kind of content jives well with your audiences. So you have to develop that understanding of the type of content, let it be genre, let it be specific type of episodes, or let it be finding a certain type of audience and understanding where that audience exists. I think to make any UA decisions, that is very important. And then you can work with your SSP, DSP partners to actually curate the inventory in the way you want, based on your KPI goals. And definitely lean on your SSP, DSP partners, because we understand the inventory better, we understand our publishers better, and we can give you guys the right mix of inventory based on your goals.
That's great to hear. So I think this next question, so I'm going to go now to a question that was asked prior to live stream starting, and this can be, I think, either for Nikunj or Alexi. Either one, feel free to jump in. But, and again, I know as a marketer, this is so important to me, but how does CTV CPIs or CPAs, right? So whether it's cost per install or cost per free trial, if you're a subscription app, how does that compare to other channels like Meta?
Oh yeah, that's a very great and specific question, and I would say it's the one which is extremely hard to answer because it really depends on the app, and is it a gaming app or is it like a productivity app or e-commerce app and so on. What stage of the life cycle the brand is at? What are the budgets? What to which extent have the social or search budgets have been deployed so far. So there is no really um, any kind of general indication. In some cases, CTV can be not only incremental but really outperforming the channels like Meta. We do see that in some cases. Sometimes it's on par. I can't say that it's I've really seen a lot of scenarios where CPIs and CPAs are worse. Typically, what we see is that the engagement is better, meaning even if the CPI is higher, the CPAs, like the subsequent events like subscriptions or any kind of in-app purchases, any kind of revenue events, are typically better on the CTV, because it represents the audience which is more engaged and more conscious about why they're doing that install. But overall, yeah, the guidance heavily depends on a lot of factors, which is hard to put in just one secret formula.
Yeah, no, I think that's a good call. And, I know we've talked a lot about media mix modeling. I know, Julia, you brought that up. And, so we're talking now how like everything kind of influences each other. And I think, Nikunj, a question for you, and this is also coming from the QA, but I think it would be great to hear your opinion, is what is that attribution window or timeline that we should expect for CTV to start influencing brand search volumes on the app stores? So it's a very specific question, and I think a really interesting one, because it's not just saying when do we expect activations within the app, but actually search volumes within the store. And do you see this contributing to app category rankings, and at what velocity? I mean, like, I know that you definitely see, I tend to see like Thursday Night Football is coming, so you see the Amazon, Prime Video app rise up. That's not necessarily being advertised on CTV, but it is related to streaming. So it's a little bit different. It would be of the people then that are advertising there, maybe what would be sort of like, what are you saying?
Yeah, I think there are two components to this that I want to touch upon. One, I mean, CTV at the end of the day is definitely a brand exposure channel. You're exposing your ad to an entire household and a bunch of households at the same time. You could pick a prime time show and advertise right before that prime time show. Everybody knows Super Bowl. Any ad that shows up before Super Bowl, it's gonna drive search volume. So analogous to that, not exactly linear, but like CTV has that kind of power where it can increase that exposure right away. And the more aggressive you are with your buys, the more you should expect app store ranking to change and the search volumes to improve. Slightly technical fact that everybody should know is essentially in CTV, the attribution window is larger as compared to mobile and display, your ad exposure can happen anywhere between 1 hour or anywhere between like 1 minute to 6 hours after the bid was sent to the publisher. So publishers generally, due to various technical reasons, hold on to the bid for quite some time, and the ad exposure happens incrementally over time, which means you should not expect a direct increase as soon as the campaign goes live. You should wait for a few hours before you see that increase come up.
That's great. So we're 40 minutes in. I have one more question, I think, before we wrap this up. There's a question. I'm going to go to the Q&A. It's similar to one that we did get beforehand. So this will be, Julia, for you. Given that CTV will remain for a little while. Nope, sorry, wrong one. Sorry. It moved up when I hit promote. How do we ensure that the CTV viewed through probabilistic attribution based on IP and other related signals is reliable and accurate for advertisers? So we had a similar question previously sent in around IPv6 addresses rotating frequently. So I feel like these two will go nicely together.
Yeah, I think from Kochava's perspective, all of our customers do rely on our device link, which is the household identity graph that I mentioned earlier. And when IP addresses get rotated, our graph gets built on a daily basis. So that ensures that we always have a fresh view of the devices within the household. So that's not to say it's the same for every measurement partner, because that is unique to what we do. But for the customers that use Kochava, we rely heavily on our household attribution graph.
I have just a small addition to that answer. I would say, unlike the mobile, where people are on a cellular network and they move through the city and IP addresses can change frequently. It's not a frequent thing where the IP address is changing in the household, and as long as the person is connected to the same router, with the mobile device as with with the streaming device, then the IP address does not really rotate that frequently unless there is no electricity, there is electricity outage, or the router is being restarted and so on. But it does not happen that frequently either, which means that is less of a problem compared to the environments where people are on the go. Yeah.
Great. Nikunj, any last words on that?
From a supply perspective, not a whole lot difference. It's mostly an MMP and a DSP factor.
Okay. Well, I'd like to thank everyone who tuned in today and to our amazing guests. I know I personally learned a lot, and I look forward to, I think, using CTV more with my brands in the future. So I think it's a huge opportunity area, and the more that we're able to, utilize what's out there, expose our brands, the better it's going to be for everyone around. So thanks everyone who tuned in, and we will see you in the future.
Thank you.
Thanks, everybody.
Thank you.
Thank you.